From the Embassy Row studios in the crap part of Soho, it's the Men in Blazers podcast, Rog.
Reeling in the wake
Of
our greatest loss. I think I went through the stats yesterday.
Yeah.
Our greatest loss since the Battle of Yorktown,
yeah,
1781.
oh
And to think, Roy Hodgson was just an anonymous lieutenant back then, Davey.
yeah, those were our Germans. Rog. Those were our Germans. We
Little-
tried it with Germans.
Little
Didn't
did we know.
Yeah.
Did we know the havoc that he would wreak
Yeah,
upon our nation in
poor
our hour
boy.
of need,
Poor boy.
100 and whatever years later.
Oh,
It's been
I'm
quite
pretty
the week.
sure Woy was also Womaine. Wodge.
You think?
Woy was Womaine. He had a bad week. He wasn't a lever.
Yep, winter is here.
Yeah,
It is officially here
we're in Ireland again.
for the English. God, a lot of you want to know how it feels for us right now. Brexit. I just say, almost as bad as the 4-0 loss to Argentina. It's just that seismic what happened
Yeah.
politically, isn't
Well,
it?
you're
David?
right. Brexit and Prelimination, both happening within the same week. Well, actually, not Prelimination because Wales are still in it. Rog, Bennett, Michael, Davis, like the Davises and Bennetts, our ancestors, some portion of our blood is still somehow in with it.
A lot of my childhood was spelt in the shadows of Carnarvon Castle.
Oh, for me in Ross Niger in the Bay Hotel on Anglesey, Rog. And if Rossi the Ice Cream Man was in fact my real father, as many of us in the family do believe, Italy was still in there as well, Rog.
David, do you remember the innocent days when we all thought that the Boaty McBoatface was the craziest public vote outcome of all time? We showed them. No.
Yeah.
We said we're going to save debate on the whole Brexit issue for our other podcast, which is Islands and Peninsulas in massive decline today.
Committing suicide.
Yeah. I'd just say that my first thought when Brexit went through, Davey,
Yeah.
was just Don Garber realising just how the British pound had fallen so mightily, thinking about his sudden economic might that he holds, that he can get pretty well any Premier League star with his designated player category now.
Yeah.
Just looking to his wife and saying, I'm going to let that targeted allocation money rain.
Yeah. I spent 2.5 hours last night looking at real estate in Scotland. I'll tell you, the exchange rate's very favourable.
Did you put a bid on the whole of Scotland?
I tell
Or
you,
just part of it?
you can take a number of hectares. There's no doubt about
I'd
it,
like
Rog.
to do my deals in Dunham.
Yeah.
But huge uncertainty economically in England spills over into football. The
Yeah.
decreased economic power of the pound. European players, thank you all of you who've just taken a dramatic overnight instant pay cut. We're grateful to all of you. The flip side, Europe. Good news, English players are now incredibly affordable for all you foreign teams who really
great.
want them.
I'm sure you want them.
Sure, there's a floodgate.
Yeah.
The truth is, a question we've had from a lot of you is what impact will all of this madness have on the one thing you truly care about now that Downton Abbey is finished, which is the English Premier League? And the honest truth is, full impact won't really be known until the government re-legislates the work permit rules and regs.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference that everyone is predicting is the big clubs' abilities to plunder European youth academies, to fill their own youth academies with talented young 16-year-olds they've stolen from elsewhere, like Cesc Fabregas or Adnan Januzaj of yore.
Actually, I'm not sure that the effect is going to be that great on the movement of European football players or any Europeans into Britain, Rog. I think the effect is going to be on all of those young British players attempting to go and ply their trade outside of Britain in Europe. Of course, Eric Dyer is one of those players who went and played at Sporting Lisbon. I just don't think you're going to see much travel, but that's not going to affect the setup. There aren't that many British players in demand at any European clubs.
You're referring to Sean Wright Phillips?
Yeah, but the New York Red Bull is not, right now, not part of Europe. Anything is possible, Rog,
Yep, well, just
under a Trump
Just
presidency.
just wait till England gets spat out and ends up in CONCACAF, David.
Well, we will see. Oh.
Away days for the English fans at Antigua and
Yeah.
Barbuda. They don't like it up and at them.
Not that good. But not that good. Oh, my God. Well, we'll get to later. We're going to talk about later. I've got a 3-point plan for England, Rog.
I've got a 3-point plan for
You do?
England. Yeah.
Give up.
No. moving to Oceania region, step one.
We're very good at... Well, no, we're too good at qualifying. We might need to just stop qualifying for major tournaments. It just seems to be a mistake. Nothing good will come of qualification. Nothing good
Especially dominant
whatsoever.
Qualification, at which no one is better.
Yeah. Talking of domination, Rog, I see you've just taken apart some Volpe Foods salami.
Yep.
I mean, that was there a second ago, and now it's not.
I'm proud to say that right now my body composition is 73% made out of salty Volpe snack products.
Yeah, I assume that went in the mouth. I didn't see it disappear.
Have you ever seen me sit up so upright? It's really done wonders for my posture.
Yeah.
The salami sticks.
Yeah. I need my own salami stick.
It's the official protein product of US football and also the official pie maker of the Frey family. Thank you, Volpe Foods.
Okay, very, very good, Rog. Okay, we've got a packed show. We're going to break down one of the great triumphs in international football history, Iceland's 2-1 win over England, followed by the antithesis of a great triumph, Roy Hodgson's final news conference, Rog.
I don't know why I'm here.
We examine Antonio Conte's tactical masterclass in Italy's 2-0 victory over Spain, and we recap Chile's Copa America penalty kick success over Argentina that prompted Lionel Messi to announce he's done with international football. All that, plus our big takeaways from the USMNT's Centenario campaign. To the football, Rog. Let's crack open the Guinness. You have your Guinness draft in the black can. I've got a Guinness blonde in the bottle, pouring it in now. Oh, we're so synchronized today, Rog. This is as synchronized as we've ever been. We finished at exactly the same time.
And I'll just say in the New World Order,
Yeah.
skull.
An Icelandic skull as well. Not a Swedish skull, not a Danish skull, not a Norwegian skull, Rog, an Icelandic skull.
We are gonna invade the mainland of Europe, the biggest Viking invasion since the 11th century. You can drink that.
And that was Big Pete, one of the Icelandic fans that I met when I was in Reykjavik, whose words, I think he said them comically, but they've turned out, Davo, to be eerily prophetic, and the most unbelievable thing of all was just how believable it was to see coming.
Yeah, we got taken by the Vikings, Rog. England 1, Iceland 2. Rog, Iceland take an early punch to the mouth, and then they hit back twice, all in the span of 14 minutes. Just 79 seconds after Wayne Rooney converted a fourth-minute penalty, Ragnar Sigurdsson latched onto a flicked throw-in to draw Iceland level. In the 18th minute, FC Nantes striker Holbit Sigthorsson rolled the ball, emphasis on roll, past Joe Hart for Iceland's second.
It was technically towards Joe Hart.
England spent, in his general direction, England spent the remaining 72 minutes largely idealist, Rog, and impotent as Iceland buccaneered their way to a win that ended the Roy Hodgson era. Didn't need to push him very hard at the end.
Oh, what an epic battle of lands. One made of ice, the other of ing.
Oh, yeah, I'd much rather be made of ice than ing.
130 volcanoes on their little island, size of Kentucky, that is Iceland. An estimated 10 million puffins, some of them who became my friends in the short time I spent in that beautiful country. A country so small. J-Dubs found a great article that kind of captures it all. They had to invent a smartphone app called an incest prevention alarm, which helps Icelanders avoid accidental incest caused by the fact that most descend from a clan of 9th century Vikings.
Wow.
It's an app that when you meet a random stranger in a bar, you bump phones and it will emit a warning alarm if you're a cousin. Wow. And you didn't know it. The slogan is, bump the app before you bump in bed, which I guess sounds better in Icelandic.
Wow.
But this is who beat England.
Which member of the Icelandic starting 11 invented that app? I mean, they all seem to have other jobs. They are Iceland's leading entrepreneurs, filmmakers, dentists, everybody, Rob.
It is a nation soaked in Norse mythology and sagas like this one. He took from his purse the jaw truth you'd hacked out of Thrain and hauled it straight into Gunnar's eye. The eye was gouged from its socket onto the cheek and Gunnar toppled off the wall. That's an 11th century Norse myth. But it might as well be a match report from last night, Davo.
Pretty much.
Because this was like watching two teams play their entire seasons last campaign in fast motion. It was like watching Chelsea's season under Mourinho.
Yeah.
England against Leicester City's entire season. Iceland, all before our eyes within 90 minutes.
It's tough to really process exactly what happened, Rog. Iceland basically scored every time they went upfield in the first half twice. England attacked a lot. They had a lot of possession, but they didn't do anything of consequence from the ball. They were frozen, Rog. They were frozen. Good players, completely and utterly frozen, petrified, terrified, incapable of responding to that fight back by the Icelanders.
I mean, I think what's fascinating about this is that Iceland didn't sit back as they were expected to, and they were willing to break, and they were willing to try and target the soft gut that is England's defence, and they actually kept quite a high line in that first half defensively. But what's fascinating as I review this game mentally, and I want to be clear, I hardly slept last night. My nipples were tingling so at the spectacle which I'd witnessed. I didn't get to sleep last night till 4 a.m. And what I kept saying to myself was, when I was reviewing it, was, England scored bloody first, Davey.
Yeah.
That's what's so narrative defying about this game. I mean, 3rd minute, Raheem Sterling, just a terrible first touch in the area, which ultimately benefited him. It was, I'd describe it as the first touch of a young José Zardes, not the young José Zardes who's excelled in the Copa, but the old José. And video director / goalkeeper Haldursson just charged into him needlessly, brought him down. Rooney, who'd boasted before the game that he'd been working on his penalties so they were foolproof by training with goalkeepers, telling them which side he was going to shoot at.
And then forgetting which side he told them.
He's so clinical now, he can even tell the goalkeeper where he's going to send it. Kept his word. 1-0 England, 4 minutes in, and a nation's nerves just calmed instantly.
By the way, the most controversial selection on the team, Raheem Sterling, and whether his first touch was terrible or not, he got to the ball first, made the goalkeeper make a decision. He made a poor decision, and it was his speed that did it. Sterling created that. Rooney took an excellent, very un-English penalty. Rog hit it into the side netting. Not sure that he remembered which side he was meant to be hitting it into. He might have been aiming at the other side, but it went in. A very un-English opening to the game, it seemed.
A nation's nerves calmed. A nation's nerves back on. England undone by the most English of goals. I mean, anyone scouting Iceland who's watched them at all in the past 3 games knows they can counter. They love a set piece, but more than anything, their weapon of choice, the long throw. I mean, I imagine England must have spent days training against the long
Marshalled by
throw.
Gary Neville, Rog,
Having watched, having watched Aaron Gunnarsson flash the ball into the area from anywhere pretty well over the halfway line. The first attempt at defending the long throw, just a sheer panic that set in. Kyle Walker, our offensive playmaker, showed that he's still a defensive liability, losing his man. And Sigurdsson, Krasnodar's Sigurdsson, David, crashed the ball past Joe Hart. His face, Joe Hart, God love him, like Ralph Wiggum in The Simpsons. You can pinpoint the exact second that his heart breaks. And I have to say, producer Lexi loves nothing more than freezing the television when Joe Hart can see and just finding that peak Joe Hart face moment.
Well, he's not going to be on television that much anymore, it seems, so we might not see it again. I mean, look, many coaches will tell you, Rog, that from a set piece, when you lose the first header, Rooney got beaten on that first piece, that's where it starts. Kyle Walker was then made to look at Mug losing his player. And that's it, 1-1. But a typical Icelandic goal. This is one of the ways they set out. Everybody knew they were going to go and try and play football. England seemed stunned by it, Rog. Yep. Stunned.
England couldn't hold on for more than 1 minute against a team that were 131st in the world 4 years ago, below Syria, below Togo, a team that were in their first ever major tournament. And a team that became so energised, they refused to sit back. They became kind of raiders like Greyjoy, pillagers, and England's defenders just held off, and they paid the iron price almost instantly. Shambolic defending allowed Sigurdsson to roll the ball half-heartedly towards Joe Hart, knowing that Manchester City's England #1 would do the logical thing to him, which was to palm it into his own net, begetting the question, which one of these bloody goalkeepers is a part-time music video director again, David?
Yeah, I know, it's so bizarre. Joe Hart, his second howler of the tournament, Rog. This made the Gareth Bale free kick look actually, he tried his best.
This was a terrible howler. Tweeted us and said, Robert Green would have saved that. And that was it. The England team came out. What was our answer, David? to try and solve things. Jack Wilshere.
Yeah, second half, Jack Wilshere. That's after the long ball, the long straight ball, the diagonal ball to the straight run, which Eric Dyer must have hit about 7 passes out of bounds. Harry Kane just shooting all over the place. Crosses being overhit. And then Jack Wilshere, Roger, a guy who barely played at the end of the season, has not looked fit in a single appearance. He's the plan B, Rog.
Oh, and the final 50 minutes just became a greatest hits of the worst English football of all time. Overhit passes, fear, just no desire to be on the ball, summed up probably by 2 Harry Kane free kicks. The first, you loved it, David. Oh. Lads, I got this.
Yeah, I got this. I said before he took it, this is going to miss by a minimum of 10 yards. I think it missed by 30.
He took that one like a child that has watched Ronaldo set up his, I'm going to toe bung the valve at a certain angle, it's going to fly unpredictably, which it did, but it was predictable. It went about 25 yards wide right. Proof of the power, the negative power of the England jersey, Davey.
A second free kick was even worse. This is a team that just simply seemed unprepared to deal with the fact that a team would sit beautifully organised, the Icelandic players, not only beautifully organised, they pressed the ball so well. England barely pressed at all. That performance against Russia in that first game, where despite the 1-1 draw, England actually played well, pressed well, a distant memory. England, no pressing, no pressure on the ball. They couldn't even hit the most simple pass out of the centre of their boot. Every pass was getting mishit. Have you ever played sport when you've been really nervous before, Rog?
That's the only way I play sport.
And the way you...
I play to choke.
Yeah,
others play to win.
You suddenly do things with a golf club or a tennis racket, my experience, that I've never even hit that shot before. I just don't know what happened. It just was remarkable to go and watch these incredibly highly paid athletes just not being able to do the simplest things correctly.
Yeah, disintegrating as the England jersey became heavier than chainmail, and the football game just became a random set of memes. Roy Hodgson with head in hands, Joe Hart punching his own head, Danny Rose, fantastic footballer, passing the ball under no pressure at all, straight to the feet of an Icelandic midfielder. Oh, Vardy bursting through, has to be said, the one great chance, and then Ragnar Sigurdsson.
Great tackle.
Oh, and Fulde, a sliding tackle, I believe documentaries will be made about. It's Iceland's version of the Joe Montana to Dwight Clark. The catch, that was the tackle. Rooney off for Rashford, like Kyburn to Purcell. Sometimes before we can usher in the new, the old has to be put to rest.
Roy started preparing Rashford to come on 20 minutes before the end of the game. It took until 3 minutes to go for them to actually make that substitution. It's like when you have a dream. You know, occasionally I have a recurring dream that I'm trying to tee off and I can't figure a place to put the ball which isn't blocked by a tree or the tee marker or somebody's bag. And I just cannot get that shot off. Similarly, Roy just couldn't make the substitution that he wanted to make.
I'm not sure that it would have mattered, Dave. I mean, it was just an extraordinary, doomed collective. I cannot exaggerate 2 things. Number one, just how massive English football is in the mind of Icelanders. They live for the Premier League. They revere England. I mean, this game, if anything, must have taught them the error of their ways.
Exactly. Start watching La Liga.
But as that clock ticked down, I thought back to Belo Horizonte.
Oh, 1950.
1950.
Oh,
when the
we were
US,
so young.
An amateur team, it's when we started podding.
Yeah.
One of our first games, US filled with wash-ups, former minor league baseball catchers, and they stunned one of the greatest English sides to ever arrive at the tournament. They won 1-0.
England were better that day.
I've always known that result existed, but I've never truly rationally understood how it could have really happened over the course of 90 minutes of football. And this game made that game so much realer for me, because we saw an equivalent to me, Davo, play out before our very eyes. And it was astonishing. It was seismic. It was deeply, deeply, deeply predictable, I believe, in many ways. And I've got to ask you, this is the morning after the night before, Davo. What are our big takeaways, the big Volpi food products that we take from what we witnessed, David?
Well, I think, and from an England perspective, or from what's going on in international football?
I think we should say, number one, before we do get to the England perspective, Iceland.
Yeah, well played.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, Swedish ball manager, great tactical schemer, Lars Lagerbäck, who's actually retiring after the Euros. I'd love him to come to the US. Co-coach, part-time dentist, Jaime Helgeson, the coolest dentist since Broad City's Lincoln. They just pulled off a clinical game plan, which was executed and committed in the same way as Muhammad Ali just committed to his rope-a-dope plan. I mean, Iceland shocked England by not sitting deep, playing a relatively high line, choosing their moments to send numbers from midfield into the soft heart of England's gut. And to take that punch on the chin, the early goal, Davey, to show that resiliency, that mental resiliency that they talked about in the film I made, Douglador. Just working harder, trying harder as individuals and a collective. I mean, we talk about the blueprint of youth development, of coaching and infrastructure they've invested in with real resources over the course of the past 20 years. But this is an amazing team, David. This was no fluke. They've beaten the Netherlands twice in qualifying, the Czech Republic, Turkey to get here. They held off Portugal. They held off Hungary. They beat Austria and now England. They are so drilled, organised and game planned as a team.
Yeah, look, and I think that's one of the first takeaways, is that style of play in this tournament, I think you can say the same things about the Italians. This sort of inspired start. They have a very definitive style of play, which they're playing under Antonio Conte. And England don't have a style of play. England, Hodgson wanted to play more possession-based football, but you can't really look at that England team and say, what is the style of play that they are employing? Like, define it. Talk about what it is. It's not wide. It actually looks incredibly narrow. It's not generated from midfield. It's not really front to back. It's not between the lines. It's very tough to think about what that style of play is.
But staying with the Icelandic team for a second, they also have no real stars. I mean, you look at the teams their players play for, their starters, Nijmegen in Holland, Krasnodar in the Russian Premier League, Malmo, Odense in Denmark, Gylfi, obviously Swansea, Aaron Gunnarsson, Cardiff, Basel, Charlton, Kaiserslautern and Nantes. I mean, I've got to ask yourself, how many of those players' professional careers will have just changed overnight with this victory? But it's more than just the players. It's more than just the coaches. The scenes post-game as they commune with their fans in that clap your hands over your head.
It's amazing.
Seattle Sounders way. Their fans, it should be said. I mean, we've heard 10% of the population is over in France. 96% TV rating, Davo. That's Andy Cohen kind of numbers they got for the game in Iceland. But Aaron Gunnarsson told me, it's also new for the national team. He said, when we played our first game in Euro qualifying, there was hardly anybody in the stadium. So you've got that three, kind of the coaching, the players, the fans in the unity. And they won as a team.
And England, of course, have absolutely none of that. They have none of those three. Despite this sort of England United campaign, together we are England, there is none of that unity whatsoever, Rog.
We've got to love the words of the fantastic commentator Gumi Ben, who's now a worldwide kind of meme for his commentating.
Massive.
Remarkable bloke who I met when I was in Iceland. He's part of the film I made for Vice. He played for his nation and admitted to me he never dreamt of a day Iceland would ever qualify for a tournament in his lifetime. His beautiful words at the end, this is done, we are never going home, never wake me up from this amazing dream. Boo as you like, England. Iceland's going to play France on Sunday. You can go home. You can go out of Europe. You can go wherever the hell you want, England. England 1, Iceland 2. The closing score here in Nice. The fairy tale continues. He's an amazing man, Gumi. And his son, he's got a teenage son who's one of dozens of young teen Icelanders who've left the country to star in the Dutch academies. He's on the brink of becoming the next big striker in the Eredivisie at Eindhoven, even though he's just a teenager. And I'll say this about Iceland. Young Americans listening, just take note. Because ultimately I realise what I adore about watching this Iceland side, more than any team bar the USA, is that their success is based on a bold blueprint and a plan, a mentality that we will win, that's born of hardship. And it makes me believe if the US can conjure a plan, throw resources at it in a similar fashion, then why not us? All we need, I think, to become an elite footballing nation is to find a dentist manager, more music video director / goalkeepers, and to train for half the year in freezing cold abject darkness. If that happens, nothing can stop us now.
Yeah, there's no reason why the US can't be every bit as good as Iceland and much better, Rog, and they might already be much better. Iceland are performing at this Euros. They're in the quarterfinals. We haven't seen them yet play against one of the elite teams. We're about to see them play against France. And if they could get through that, who knows what is going to happen, Rog?
We, please God, we'll see. But point 2, Davo, England were devastatingly terrible. And that devastating terribleness was both tactical
Yeah, Roy.
And mental.
Players.
Let's cast our mind back to the days of late May when we all quietly whispered to each other, Kane, Ali, Dyer, Walker, Vardy.
After beating Germany. They're not a bad team.
This team might actually be quite good.
Yeah.
I mean, those days, they seem as distant now as 1966 to me, David.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only cast my mind as far back as the Iceland-Austria game, the last-minute winner for Iceland, which England scouts who were watching celebrated because it meant England would avoid Portugal and instead play tiny Iceland. I mean, England's whole approach, I'll say, to this game was reminiscent of Bobby Robson, the great manager. His quote in 1990, when England played an unknown quantity, Cameroon, and barely scraped past them. Barely scraped past them. And he told the press afterwards, we didn't underestimate Cameroon. We just didn't think they'd be that good. And that, to me, was the whole approach to the Iceland game. Because England, tactically, David, they were just terrible.
There are some, when I was playing junior tennis, Rog, there were some tennis players, and I would be chief amongst them, who always played much better against better tennis players and struggled to beat the players who were not as good as them. And I think England are that kind of a football team. I think they feel the pressure, and I think you just look at their results. When the pressure's not on them, when they're not expected to win, that performance against Germany, a lot of these same players were very, very good. It was a friendly, it wasn't a competitive international. But still, it's an England-Germany friendly. It's never that friendly. They can play very well. Maybe England would have played better against Portugal. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because in tournaments, you've got to beat the team in front of you. My mind went back. England have only won 3 knockout games in major tournaments since 1990. I was at 2 of them. I was at the Ecuador game.
You played very well.
And I was at the
1-0.
Denmark game up in Nagata in Japan.
Great
and
sushi.
England, with a team that many people was, this was overrated, all those kind of things. But England demolished Denmark that day in that World Cup round of 16 game before they went and narrowly lost to Brazil, played very, very well in Shizuoka before they lost. England just don't have the level of experience amongst these players and inspired by these coaches to go and do that. And so the second they were hit back, I felt that England lost that game the second that Iceland equalised. They were just punched. And the second they got punched, they got found out. And they had a collective, exponential loss of confidence and courage, which comes from being a very young team, a very poorly coached team, and a very ill-led team. Does it mean that Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, Harry Kane, Danny Rose, etc., are terrible footballers who should never play for England again?
Depends if you're asking an Arsenal fan or not.
I don't believe so. Does it mean that Jack Wilshere is a terrible football player who should never play for England again? I don't think it means that they're terrible football players. It just means there is something about the English nature when it comes to soccer, as we've just celebrated our rugby players going down under and whitewashing the Australians, as we get ready for an Olympic Games where the British, by all accounts, might have a fairly good team and might do quite well again. But the English football team just again and again and again and again underperform on the world stage. And there seems to be nothing happening on an administrative level to make any difference to
Well, let's talk about it, because in this tournament, half of it was tactical. Rooney shoehorned into midfield, then left there, oddly, when England needed a goal desperately with the minutes ticking down. A man who scored 53 times in 115 appearances. The cavalry was needed at half-time. That cavalry was Jack Wilshere, a lame mare who hasn't played 90 minutes since England were last good. I mean, international managers are always faced with a decision. Do we play our best, our biggest players and jam them into a formation irrespective of the positions, or do we pick the most cohesive 11 as a team? And England managers over and over again choose the former. Roy Hodgson chose the former, with Raheem Sterling as a terrifying example, a buzzy player with a huge social media and kind of endorsement level profile that doesn't match his current form over the last 6 months. And we died with that. I mean, dull but efficient role players, James Milner, Jordan Henderson, they might have made this game feel very different. I did love, I've got to say, at halftime, someone changed Roy Hodgson's Wikipedia page to the most derisory English term possible. It just read, Roy Hodgson, I am a spoon.
He is spoon-like, Rog. But how can one possibly explain?
I prefer cutlery to manage England.
In that I tell you, a knife might do quite a good job. 4 games in this tournament. England, 82 shots. Not bad to get 82 shots, Rog, out of 4 games. They only had 26 shots against them, so they obviously possessed the ball. They prevented too many shots. That's less than 8 a game. It's less than 7 a game, Rog, against them. And yet they conceded 4 and they only scored 4. 2 of those goals coming from set pieces. That must speak to not even necessarily anything else other than the mental element of playing football. The mental element. Mentally, they're not tough enough to figure a way to score goals, to win points, to win matches.
Part of it was tactical, but they were also, and this is very reassuring, terrible mentally. I mean, the second half was a perfect showcase of that. We watched hitherto fantastic footballers play with abject fear. I mean, the game was like one of those devious Stanley Milgram psychological experiments, like the prisoner experiment that you read about in the 50s and 60s, in which ordinary subjects are unwittingly exposed to unusual scenarios of hysterical stress, and the base instincts of human nature that lie just beneath the surface in all of us are just exposed to the light of day. In this case, fight or flight. And for almost 60 minutes, it was flight, flight, flight. I mean, basic passes couldn't be made by terrific players. Eric Dyer, rendered incapable. Daniel Sturridge, robbed of his ability to dribble. Harry Kane's shot was turned into a clown car. I mean, Harry Kane has evolved in the past 2 weeks from our nation's leading choice to be the next James Bond into a national piñata.
He might never be the same again.
He's an exhausted, fallen hero.
Yeah.
He's a 22-year-old who has played, thanks to the Europa League tilt Spurs did, plus their heartbreaking title run, since August 2014, 118 games. This is a young body that is not used to that kind of a gauntlet. He's played 66 games in the last 12 months, shattered, and he has been singled out for incredible criticism. But to me, it's not his fault. There's a fabled British soccer writer, Brian Glanville, who once summed all of this up beautifully, the lack of technique and preparation that Groundhog Day plagues English football. He wrote, "Ours is a story of vast superiority, sacrifice through stupidity, short-sightedness and wanton insularity. It's the story of shamefully wasted talent, extraordinary complacency, and infinite self-deception." He wrote that 10 years ago, but those words have never rung truer to me than last night, David.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm fascinated by, David. How do new players, completely new players, assume the weight of history, the toxic culture of fear? How does that happen that they just imbibe it?
You mean like a Dele Alli? How is he suddenly tarnished by the same brush? I actually think he's one of the few players that comes out of this entire tournament looking pretty good. I thought he, at times, played quite well yesterday. I know nobody will write that. It'll be an unpopular view. But I thought he made more effort and seemed to sort of have more confidence than anyone. Look, football is exponential. When your team lose it, when your teammates lose it. And by the way, particularly when that starts at the back, Rog, when that starts with your goalkeeper, when you start to lose confidence in your goalkeeper, who's also one of your leaders of your team.
Yeah, no leaders, no calm, only panic.
He's on the bottom of the pyramid, Joe Hart. That, I think, becomes very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a tall poppy syndrome we've talked about in England before. Our nation loves to cut down anyone who steps up and claims to be competent. We love to bring them down to base level. I mean, you look at that compared to the giddy delight the entire Icelandic nation have taken in their team's progress, based on collective joy, love of each other, and infallible confidence that just infuses a squad and makes them able to achieve wild, deliriously wonderful, feverish dreams. Here's what I do know, David, and I tread on this terrain very carefully because we almost had a fist fight about this during Brazil 2014 because I know we see this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I don't want to be offensive, but I do think at our core, we English, we love defeat because it's very self-validating. I mean, losing in England, it's so affirming. We've said before on this show that Steve Coogan defined the essence of England as, if you give an Englishman the choice between his own success or your failure, he'll always choose your failure because your failure is so much more validating. It detracts from his own and the nation's own. Ultimately, I believe, and this is where we see things differently, I think we take such little pride in our nation. It's why the Brexit thing does tie in a little bit.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you about a lot of what you say, and I can't remember the fist fight in Brazil whatsoever.
I told you the players could not care less singing their national anthem because they have no pride. There's very little pride in being English, and you took that.
I don't know that I totally believe that. But I think the reason why I don't see this as a cross-English thing is that we've seen over the last 15 years across all sport, Britain, England has got a lot better. We've seen World Cup winning rugby side. We've seen, as I just said, a rugby side that just went down to Australia, whitewash the Australians down there. We've seen our best Olympic performances ever. And we've seen our cricket team achieve success. We've seen things that we've never seen as English people across all of our sports. And yet in football...
Doesn't matter.
In football...
That's the only thing that matters.
In football, we don't seem capable of it.
The one thing, coincidentally, that the world really, really cares about. Here's my big takeaway, because I'm a productive, kind of positive man. I want to avoid a fist fight with you, decoding whether English people do care about the country and their DNA right now or not. We need a new national anthem, David. We need one that doesn't stir up such weird emotions.
Yeah.
We're one of the few countries that don't sing about the country or our history. We sing about one old crusty symbolic monarch, a titular but not even a powerful head.
Yeah.
God save the Queen. I mean, when you sing that song, it does not make you want to run through walls. You look at the Slovakian national anthem. Thunders loudly sound. Let us stop them, brothers. After all, they will disappear. The Albanian one. From war abstains only he who a traitor is born. He who is a true man is not frightened, but dies a warrior to the cause. Even the bloody French, Davo. Let's march, let's march. Let an impure blood soak our fields. And we sing, God save the Queen. We've got to start singing the bloody Sex Pistols version before games, Dave. I think that would shake up everything.
Yeah, and did those feet in ancient times. It's that kind of a thing, which they do sing at the rugby. They do sing it at the rugby, Roger. You might have a point. And yet I really doubt that the singing of a different national anthem... By the way, by the time the committee that decides what that national anthem is going to be, it'll be Bucks Fizz singing a Eurovision Song Contest entry. It will be... I'm not sure that we've come up with anything better, Rog.
And the big third takeaway, now that Roy Hodgson has turned in his badge and his gun.
Yeah. Management, Rog. I think we've got to assume that the players care. The players certainly look like they cared. I think the idea that they didn't care, yes, it might have been shameful, as Alexi Lalas, I think, incorrectly put on the US team, but they cared.
This was shameful.
They cared. They cared, Rog. But management and the administration of the game over years and years and years, a lot of the same problems. To watch a manager, and Roy, what a lovely man, but to watch him not being able to inspire any fight on the sideline.
The nation's grandpa.
Oh my God. And, the lack of any clear playing system, style, identity. The idea, we read in the papers that he had to yell at his strikers last week because they couldn't make any shots. They had something like a 10% strike rate in training sessions, the forwards. Just mentally, this was not a team that was prepared to go and play in a major tournament.
But the question is, who would want this job? One in which, admittedly, you're given a lot of money.
Yeah.
£3.5 million.
Well,
what's that in this new world? Like $2.50?
Yeah, it used to be a lot of money.
To be essentially publicly humiliated.
Yeah.
To have your name sullied like a character in an Arthur Miller play.
Yeah.
To be a national scapegoat, to live under conditions of harrowing distress as a national tabloid seek to mine your life for minor acts of perversity. Who would want the job, David? England under-21 boss Gareth Southgate, great CV resume, taking Middlesbrough into the Championship, is favourite to be the replacement. Brendan Rodgers, Alan Pardew, according to the bookies, Tim Bloody Sherwood also getting a mention.
Well, look, I mean, I'm not sure that, CVs of managers even make a big difference. Lots of people succeed on the international stage without having had stellar careers before at club level. Gareth Southgate did at least win the Toulon under-21 tournament this summer with, by the way, a fantastic group of young players and some fantastic performances with a real playing style that they established in France. But I don't know. Whoever it is...
Miguel Herrera, Tyrion Lannister.
Oh, Alan Shearer wants the job.
Even more outlandishly, as The Independent keeps reporting, Jurgen Klinsmann.
Hey.
You want something out of the box, Davey?
I'd like to take someone from another sport. I'll take an Australian rugby coach. I'll take somebody who's going to look at this in a really unorthodox way. I do believe we got the players. What I really, really hope is at the end of this, we don't end up sacrificing an entire generation of young players. The reality of this is that England had an incredibly young team, very, very few caps in major tournaments. And the teams that are doing well in this tournament either have a lot of caps or they have a lot of age. You've got to have experience if you don't have age. What we've done with a series of players, do you remember last summer Eric Dyer, they left him out of the under-21 tournament squad because they decided, he wasn't quite ready for that. And yet this summer he's expected to step up on an international stage. Marcus Rashford has never been anywhere near the under-21 setup.
I pray, by the way, that this does not stain Marcus Rashford, because I think a lot about the Israelites, how they had to wander in the desert for 40 years.
You're always thinking about
all those
that.
who knew slavery would pass away and a new nation could be forged out of free men.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether we have to get rid of all of them now and just go super, super young and have none of them who are tarnished by
the
this
unsullied.
terrible...
The unsullied.
And Marcus Rashford, I'm praying, is just too young, too fearless, and just too blithe to everything that he's just gone through, that he alone will carry on, Davo. I've got to say, in terms of managers, my shortlist reads like this. Richard Branson, Martin O'Malley. He impressed me in the Democratic race. We could do worse. My number one pick, Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah.
Lean in, lads.
Yeah, lean in.
One big takeaway for me on this, Davo. English coaching is terrible coaching. And I say this with no humour. A root cause of America's stunted growth could be because so many of our rank and file coaches come from England. We are the herpes of world coaching. I got a letter from Dan Harvard, huge England fan, who wrote to us, I quit smoking years ago. I'm trying to quit sugar. Soccer may be the worst of all when it comes to our health. Has anyone written the How to Quit Soccer book?
Yeah, it's very, very true. There are some good young English coaches. Eddie Howe is a guy who I know you desperately don't want to come and take the job, so you're hoping he's going to go and be Everton in the future.
Yeah, when Ronald Koeman has won us the championship and gone to Barcelona.
Yeah, which championship? The championship. We'll see what it is.
Dan Harvard, my advice would be just start drinking like Ben Affleck. It's the only way.
Yeah.
By the way, I take pride in small measures. This was probably England's greatest performance at the Euro 2016. The England fan who was described in French court as being, quote, astronomically drunk and was given a 5-month suspended jail sentence after he forced his way into a French policeman's home, mistaking the property for his rented apartment. Well done. As a final epitaph for England, we'll just sing miserably your fan song, Don't Take Me Home. Please don't take me home. I just don't want to go to work. I want to stay here, drink all your beer. Please don't take me home.
How good are Iceland, Rog? How far could they go in this tournament?
I think they're phenomenal. International football has changed, and it is about the collective and collective spirit far more than it is about superstar talent. See Portugal. They will play France on Sunday now, Iceland, a team who look beatable, struggling in a come-from-behind victory against a direct, physical, confident Ireland, who were first to every second ball for the longest time. French seemed, for long stretches, discombobulated, faltering, but 2 goals in 3 minutes from the tiny dagger, Antoine Griezmann, one with a remarkable header. Oh, he's diminutive yet meaty French forehead. What a player he is. He says, I think in French, but I get angry in Spanish. I love the Basques. I also love the Irish, who've gone up early and dared to dream and should take heart from what was a remarkable performance physically and mentally, light years away from their passive impotence at Euro 2012, though still technically second-rate. Iceland, Davo, they are phenomenal. They'll look at a video of that French game and think, we can do them. I mean, when I watch them in training, I have rarely seen... I mean, they had a furious inter-squad game in training in Reykjavik. I have rarely seen players, even in practice, playing harder, more competitively, more angrily, even amongst themselves. They are dire wolves in cleats.
Italy 2, Spain 0. An ironclad Azzurri dispatched the defending European champions on Monday. Goals from Giorgio Chiellini and Graziano Pella see Antonio Conte's men into the quarterfinals, Rog.
Oh, adios, Spain. Your play was as ugly as your jersey. First of all, I'm sorry that I've got to harken back to anthems for a second, but we got a beautiful tweet from @HowWeGotAnts who said, someday I hope to love something as much as Buffon loves the Italian national anthem. Don't we all, my friend? Fantastic game. Italy, not daunted. Sense that Spain, even though they've kept dumping Italy out of tournament after tournament since 1994, they took the field as if they believed that we were living in the end of the Spanish era of football and that this Spain team were mortal. And as it turned out, Dave, they were incredibly mortal.
Yeah, an incredible Italian team, Rog. Incredibly old, one of the oldest teams in the tournament, and yet with almost no Italian caps whatsoever. Very, very little international experience. It's like putting out the old guys whose careers are sort of washed up and telling them they're no good, and they seem inspired under the right manager. at the right time, Rog. Playing just beautiful, aggressive, inspired football.
Fearless football. They tactically outplayed Spain, demythologised them mentally, got their just desserts on 33 minutes, and the Eder free kick was not held by De Gea, and Chiellini was amongst the players who descended to prod the ball home with a clinical finish that reminded me of a certain toothy Uruguayan striker. Maybe that World Cup bite gave him the ability of a lethal finisher. Big question at half-time, would Del Boss be able to make the tactical changes to salvage the game? And the answer was no. It is hard to keep winning. It's hard for a winning squad to stay fresh. I kept watching this Spain team thinking about the US women and how they, when you talk to them, admit that the biggest challenge is to keep sharp when you're winning Olympics and then the World Cup. You have the Olympics up front. You need new blood in the squad to make that happen, to keep the players on their toes. There was little new blood in this Spanish squad, and it was just De Gea unfurling a string of remarkable saves that kept them in the game. There was one moment, though, David, when we knew that the game was over. The 75th, the ball bounced out to the feet of one future Chelsea manager, Antonio Conte.
Oh, and he booted it, Rog. Nowhere near the right direction.
Yep, the moment we realised Conte's made for Chelsea and Chelsea is made for Conte. I mean, international managers are now nice, genteel old men. I mean, it's not a job for ruthless first-rate managers. You've got Del Boss, you've got Hodgson. Iceland have a dentist, for God's sake. Conte, amongst his international peers, is like a wolf amongst sheep or a shark amongst sea sheep. I mean, he's just so sharp, so passionate, so tactically intense, Davo. Got to congratulate you and Chelsea on winning the 2016-17 Premier League title. Because you like what you see, don't you?
I like what I see, but mainly because I know that he's going to inflict massive pain on the Chelsea squad, and I just want to see them go through inordinate pain during pre-season. That's all I expect of Conte.
Yeah.
I just want the players to be miserable.
I do remember how we all lauded LVG after his great tactical revolutions, with Robin taking a unfancied Netherlands side into the semi-final, switching goalkeepers for the shootout. What a genius he was before he arrived at United. I don't think Conte is going to be the same as that, but he is going to have to win with Cesc Fabregas in the team rather than against him, which is going to be the most fascinating challenge of all. The Italians march on to a heavyweight clash against Germany.
Yeah, Germany. I'm just praying that Antonio Conte likes what he sees in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Rog. That's what I'm praying for. Yes, Germany, Rog. Germany calling. Italy's Temple of Doom-style path to the title pits them against defending World Cup champion Germany in the quarterfinals. Jogi Löw,
Can't help himself.
does not look completely unlike Antonio Conte. They're like two different versions of the same
They might have
person.
got the same hair transplant. Mate.
They scratched and
Both got the
sniffed
catalogue
their
pointed to the same.
way past Slovakia Sunday, a comprehensive 3-0 win.
Can't help himself. Why is that? Is that just like mental tics at this point? Sticking his
know.
fingers under his armpits, giving
Up
him
his
a whip?
nose, in his ear, all over the place.
I think he must have invested in like one of those meme sites like Giphy or something, and he's just trying to give the world
create more GIFs.
things that will allow his app to really blow up. Oh, it's going to be a heavyweight clash, Dave. I mean, Germany have never beaten Italy in a tournament. 8 previous attempts. Remember, most recently, 2012, Italy 2, Germany 1. Mario Balotelli in superhuman jersey off, nipples out, striker pose form. But Germany, they were so clinical, so professional, so dominant, so German in topping Slovakia. Italy have a problem in midfield. De Rossi looking like he'll be out with a hip injury. Thiago Motta suspended. But it's going to be such a tasty game. One of those that Simon Kuiper refers to when he talks about international football and how when the teams walk out, their nation's history walk out alongside of them. A lot of history.
A lot of history, Rog. A lot of history. In the other two quarterfinals, Poland versus Portugal, that's 3 p.m. Thursday from the Stade Velodrome in Marseille. A Poland side that defeated Shaqiri and Switzerland in penalty kicks take on Portugal, who beat Croatia 1-0 in the knockout rounds, equivalent of that burger that looks amazing on Instagram but actually tastes like cardboard. A 117th minute goal from Ricardo Quaresma, the difference in that one, Rog.
Yeah, you can make the case it should actually be Croatia against Switzerland in this game. Poland winning on penalties. We believe that a dance-off or trial by combat would be a much fairer way to end a competitive game of football.
Yeah, Shaqiri should have got an extra half point for that goal, Rog.
And then some. Portugal-Croatia was one of the single worst international games I have ever watched. The Cars for Kids commercial is more pleasant to watch than that game was. Extra time was the worst half hour of football since our last Men in Blazers episode. The winner knocked home by Quaresma, the winger of Roma extract with the 2 teardrops tattooed on his cheek, a symbol that he's either murdered a duo in a prison lockdown or just naturally grew there out of repeated sorrow that Ronaldo never passes to him. Fewer players have whittled away more talent than that man.
You mentioned the dance-off, Rog. I hate penalty shootouts. I don't believe penalties are any way to end important soccer games. I do quite like the idea of the penalty shootout taking place before the extra time, because I think it would improve extra time, which increasingly is useless in international football.
Just rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, that could work also. Okay, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Rog. The only home international interest we have left in the tournament as Britons, Rog. It's
Davies.
Wales. Michael Davies, Roger Bennett. It's Wales versus Belgium in Lille. Wales arrive in the quarterfinals after a pragmatic 1-0 win over Northern Ireland. Gareth McCauley steered a Gareth Bale cross into his own Gareth net in that one. Chris Coleman's men play a Belgium side that put 4 past Hungary and goalkeeper / star icon Gabor Kirai.
And so farewell our sweat-panted heroes. Could honestly have been 8 or 9-0 to Belgium. Eden Hazard is coming alive. Kevin De Bruyne gone next level. And even though Fellaini's hair looks like an explosion in a yellow paint factory, Belgium look good. That loss to Italy in the first game seems like a masterstroke, dumping them in the kind of NIT side of the bracket. The old gods and the new have made it seem like a deep run could be in their hands, but they face Wales, who survived Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland-Wales sounded like such a good idea before kick-off, but it was more like a relegation scrap in Division 1. And mercifully, we were spared extra time by Gareth McCauley, his own goal scored with the kindness of Dr. Kevorkian. Highlight of the game, Northern Ireland supporters chanting, venting their Brexit woes, "We voted Remain, we voted Remain, we're not stupid, we voted Remain."
Yeah.
But Wales...
Unfortunately, the Welsh did vote leave.
Yeah, the Welsh, Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey with their man-bun, bleach-blonde combo, look like Welsh Khal Drogo and Khaleesi. They march on. Bale has been a powerhouse, 19 shots, 21 dribbles, both category leaders. A bit like Maradona, who single-handedly dragged a very poor Argentina team to glory at World Cup 1986. Wales starting to believe, and my favourite and most dream-soaked headline so far is the Welsh local paper that wrote, "Chris Gunter facing wedding dilemma. The defender is to give his brother's best man speech. He'll have to give it via Skype if Wales reach the semi-finals."
Oh, that's so good, Rod. I wish they'd bring back the home internationals. Just, I'd love that. When we were kids, England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Ireland used to play against each other every year in a sort of a 5-team tournament. It was fantastic. It was something that England actually won occasionally. By the way, not as often as you'd think. They occasionally won. I'd love the home internationals, especially with all the Brexit stuff, Rog. It would be amazing to get the home internationals back. Okay, Rog, Copa America. This seems like it happened in a different century. Football tournaments, when they're over, they're just like done forever.
Not for Sunil Glati. I imagine he's at home frantically trying to sell UEFA on the idea of Euro 2017 Centenario.
Yeah, in America. We will see, Rog. The final, Chile 0, Argentina 0. Chile won it 4-2 on penalties.
Champions League, Centenario.
A Greek tragedy. The Premier League, Centenario.
Playoffs, Centenario.
The Olympics, Centenario.
Glastonbury, Centenario.
World Cup every year, Centenario. A Greek tragedy of a game that left one of the world's greats face down on the MetLife Stadium turf after a turgid 120 minutes marred by dodgy refereeing and a red card for each team. The game went into penalties. Argentine keeper Sergio Romero saved the first penalty from Arturo Vidal to set the stage for Lionel Messi, Rod, the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner. Stepped to the spot in the humid New Jersey night, and he skied his penalty. Chile wouldn't miss again. La Roja claimed their second Copa America title in as many years, and Messi says he's done with international football for good.
Watching this game, big takeaway. US soccer doesn't need smarter youth development, nor more elite coaches. It just needs a crap load more neck tattoos.
Yeah.
And everything is just going to be amazing. Because this game wasn't amazing. It was physically hectic, spoiled by the erratic, effusive over-refereeing of a Brazilian, Heber Lopez, who was a shame to all balls. Sent off Chile's Diaz in the 28th minute on a horrible call, a Messi rules call, which Messi asked for the yellow card and got one for him, and then gave a make-up call on Rojo in the 43rd minute. At Grover T. Muldoon tweeted, Copa America Centenario rule. In the event that all players from both teams are shown red cards, the referee's country wins.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anything past CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, Rog.
I felt sad watching the game, David. Should have been a commercial for the elite level of the game in the country. 82,000 in the stadium. Looked magnificent. But it was just grim. I mean, the Game of Thrones finale lured the audience away at half-time. It was just dark arts, elbows, professional fouls. Chile did everything they could to smother the space Argentina and Messi craved. And the only world-class performances and the greatest bursts of speed occurred when the referee blew his whistle and the players raced in to surround him and get into his big bald face.
Yeah, football is sometimes crap, Rog, and this was one of the prime examples.
Yeah, and so on to penalties, Dave. Your favourite conclusion to a game. We've got to talk about Messi's miss. I mean, he blasted the ball way over the bar into the dark, swampy heat of the New Jersey night from 36 feet away with just the goalkeeper to beat. It's an amazing thing, the penalty shootout. Some of the greatest players, Van Basten, Muller, Platini, Diana Ross, they've all missed when it mattered. Testament to the mental pressure that bears down on the player in that moment in a game that's essentially akin to Russian roulette played out in cleats. You've got to credit Chile, game plan to win, the courage to execute it. They were a relentless, hard-charging, ruthless collective, rightly can claim now to be the best team in South America. But watching Lionel Messi have Steph Curry feelings, Davo, after the game, watching him cry, it was like watching hunters kill Bambi's mum.
Yeah.
The only people who would have enjoyed it were Chile fans or Diego Maradona. How do you feel? How do you understand what went on after losing 3 finals in 3 years, 2 on penalty shootouts, 1 by a single goal, talking about his retirement?
Well, the great frustration. I mean, he's been playing for the last, 10 years for the greatest club team in the world, Rog. And he's not been playing for the best national team in the world, a team that looked capable of being the best national team in the world. But, under all of what we're talking about in the Euros and under Copa America, international football, international national team football is not the highest standard of football in the world. The highest standard of football in the world is club football. And he's playing for a less good side, less well coached,
less well organised. It's just been taken over by FIFA.
I know, that's how bad it is. If you're taken over by FIFA, you may as well be taken over by Enron, Rog. It would be a better organisation to take over your federation. I
mean, my first reaction was, bloody hell, some people really don't want to go to a World Cup in Russia, do they? But I think you're right. Having left for Barcelona age 13, he has always been viewed with suspicion in Argentina. They call him the foreigner, or El Catalan. And the only place in the world where he's not universally beloved, apart from Brazil, is Argentina. I think this kind of retirement is the kind of James Brown throwing off his cape at on stage retirement, and I do believe we will see him back again when things are righted in the Argentinian Football Association. But let's say it's real, Davo. To you, does it hurt Messi's legacy?
I don't think so. I think we still look at those individual highlights. We still look, even at that free kick in this Copa Centenario, we still look at everything he's achieved at club level, this sort of miraculous footballing ability. As amazing as Eden Hazard's performance was for Belgium the other day, it's not Messi-like in terms of his domination of his performance, his ability to glide past players, his ability to do things that no other player is capable of doing. I'm not sure it's going to hurt his legacy at all.
I think it only will for the haters. But you're right, football's changed since Pele's day. Primacy lies not at the international level, but with club football and with Champions League football in particular, which is where Messi has shone over and over and over, with a remarkable consistency that gives him his transcendency.
And let's also think about what's going to happen in international national team football over the next few years. We have World Cups in
Centenario.
Russia, in Qatar.
Centenario.
We have Centenarios all over the place. The Euros, having
like
expanded
McDonald's
to
franchises.
24 teams, the Euros isn't going to be established in one country. It's going to be played across Europe. I just think that the whole currency of international national team football is becoming
goosey
there.
That laid the golden egg. International football.
Very, very
Which
true.
is a nice segue into the US.
Yes, Rog, in the third place game at the Centenario, Rog, USA 0, Colombia 1, a game akin to 1815's Battle of New Orleans, Rog, which was fought 2 weeks after the War of 1812 was already over. Unfortunately, Andrew Jackson wasn't in Phoenix to save a spirited US squad from a 31st minute Carlos Bacca goal. I believe that's our first Andrew Jackson reference on the pod, Rog.
I have to look that one up on the wiki. I think there's been 11 previous.
Place finish at a major tournament, but leave many questions unanswered. We know no more about this team than we did going in, Rog.
Yeah, but it's reassuring to know that we're number 4 in the CONMEBOL CONCACAF when CONMEBOL doesn't properly give a crap and CONCACAF isn't really invited.
Yeah.
Odd thing about this game, Jurgen played to win. The lineup was as good as he could make it. It suggests he wanted to defend his programme's reputation, worsen the impact of a loss that came anyway, which doesn't augur well for his meeting with Sunil Gulati to debrief on progress. US played better in this game than they did when they were beaten 2-0 in the opening match against Colombia, but that game meant something. This did not, so it's really impossible to gauge. Ultimately, the big picture debate is about progress, which is going to reign on for a while. Is this programme making progress after a final Copa record of 3 wins and 3 losses? Jurgen had set the semi-final up as his goal. Sounded ludicrous when he said it, but the team accomplished that goal and then ran into a footballing buzzsaw that was a hungry peak Argentina. There's pluses from the tournament. We got a semi-solid, reliable, consistent backline. Jeff Cameron, John Brooks, fantastic tournament. Bobby Wood,
especially.
St. Bobby Wood, now a squad fixture in attack. Clint Dempsey will be at World Cup 2018, probably as a wild card spark plug. And Christian Pulisic looked lovely in the 6.5 minutes that we got to see him, Davo.
Yeah.
But where are we, big picture? Not just Copa, but in terms of the Klinsmann tenure.
Yeah, I just don't know. I really don't know. And there are lots of very differing views amongst people who cover US soccer. Many believe we've got the players, it's just the coaching which is at fault. And other people believe that our players can't compete on a technical ability with the rest of the world. My thing is that the US, and it sort of goes back to your earlier point against Iceland, is that when this US team have played really well, and when, frankly, they've beaten elite teams, Portugal in the 2002 World Cup, where Portugal were one of the favourites coming into that tournament, they've done it with that sort of collective mentality, that incredible team spirit, that never-say-die attitude. I do like what's going on in the spine of the team. I like what I see out of John Brooks. I like what I see out of Bobby Wood. I still worry who is going to be that elite player who's going to step into that midfield, Bradley, Donovan, midfield forward, Dempsey role and be the next player. It could be Pulisic. We just don't know enough yet, and we shouldn't curse him. We shouldn't crown him before he has achieved those things and earned that.
You crown a king too early, you get Tommen. The thing I've been thinking about a lot this week, David, is we talk about the collective spirit of this team of York, and I think we've got to be wary of pointing to that deep past as a point of comparison, as many of the team's leading critics do. I mean, one thing it's important to bear in mind, that collective team play that propelled the national team in 1994 and beyond, it was forged in the fact that most of the players didn't have professional team contracts, and they lived together in California. They trained together for over a year at a national team training camp. Some of them racked up over 70 international games in a year and a half without ever having kicked a ball for a club. That unique experience, that bonded them together unbelievably and made them almost like a club team rather than an international team. Unfortunately, we can't repeat that unique experience. And what we've got to do is do the opposite to that in gathering. We've got to have our best players play in the best leagues possible. Martin Tyler once told me the difference between great players and good players, it's all decision making. Best players just make better decisions more of the time, pass, dribble, shoot, run, under pressure than average players.
Yeah.
And the sharpness comes from playing in the biggest games that you can.
Unless you're English, Roger.
Of course, unless you're English,
the
David.
English exception.
Post-game, Sunil Gulati, getting to the semi-finals is very good, but I never said he, Jurgen Klinsmann, wasn't on solid ground or was on solid ground or anything else. I don't know what's going to happen. They are going to meet. I spoke to a couple of friends who cover college basketball very seriously for ESPN, and one of them said, I don't know much about soccer, but if Jurgen was a college basketball coach of a mid-sized college with big-time ambition, he'd probably be removed after 5 years. Without demonstrating evidential process, whatever happens now, Davo, it's in Sunil Gulati's hands. And it's not a wild scenario for me to think of Jurgen just stepping off and going elsewhere and leaving the programme where it is, which does beg the question of Sunil Gulati and the decision makers on US Soccer's board a board that I'm beginning to believe really needs term limits. Who's watching the Watchmen?
Yeah. We got to look at that board. We got to look at the composition of that board because it all starts with governance, Roger. It all starts with the governance.
We need to get Bob Lee on there.
Yeah, the general. The general. Okay, your weekend looks like this, courtesy of Mini USA. Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Germany versus Italy on ESPN2. Sunday at noon Eastern Time in MLS. It's the second Hudson River derby of the season. Rog, NYCFC versus New York Red Bulls on ESPN. I think they need to win 8-0 to take the lead in the season series.
Come on, Dax, you can do it.
And at 3 p.m. Sunday, France versus your beloved Iceland, Rog, on ESPN Dos. There are many other ways to connect to us. One is through our Amazon Emporium, which helps keep the show going. Anytime you go on Amazon for items, big or small, just click off the Emporium page and Men in Blazers gets a tiny percentage, allows us to cover the cost of creating the show. What are you putting in the Emporium this week, Rog?
A book.
Oh.
The Blue Fox by Shion. The Icelandic cult hero novelist, sometimes Björk lyricist. When I went over to Iceland, a trip which I've now bored everyone to complete ad nauseum, we should probably have a new podcast called Icelandic Happenings Today.
Roger talks about Iceland.
Yeah. I mean, I try to read as much of the nation's literature as possible. And this beautiful short novella, it's like a leap into the fantastic imagination that is the Icelandic mindset. It's a modern creative reworking in the style of an old myth, epitomising the brutal suffering that shaped the nation and the mystical thinking that it's produced. You love that majority of Icelanders believe in ghosts, trolls and elves more than any other nation.
Yeah,
and this book, as a result, it's like no other. And if you want to understand how Gylfi Sigurdsson does what he does on the football pitch, this book about life, death, humans' relation to unforgiving nature is mesmerisingly poetic.
Okay, Rog, I'm not putting anything in the Emporium this week. I'm just too depressed. It would be too dark. What I want to put in would be too dark. I'm not even putting it in there, Rog.
I've got to say, barbecue meat doesn't tell itself its own temperature, David.
Yeah, you're right. There are no meat thermometers going in the Emporium this week, Rog.
There's no meat thermometer man has created that will cheer you up out of your
funk. No, it won't happen, Rog. You can watch every episode of Men in Blazers Euro 2000 and Copa on vicesports.com. We're sorry. Just click on the tab at the top that says Men in Blazers. All past episodes and digital videos are up there as well. We return this Thursday immediately after Poland versus Portugal at 5 p.m. Eastern Time with special guest UN's men's national team legend and Philadelphia Union sporting director Ernie Stewart, Rog.
I can't wait. We're going to talk youth development.
And Roger's trip to Iceland. We're back at 5 p.m. Friday too. Visit meninblazers.com to sign up for our newsletter, which we produce with our partner Guinness. This Friday we've got a feature with Ben Littleton, the author of 12 Yards, The Art and Psychology of the Perfect Penalty, in which he will break down Lionel Messi's penalty miss. Follow us on Twitter at meninblazers, at Embassy Davies, at Roger Bennett, on Instagram at meninblazers, at Embassy_Davies, on Facebook. Men in Blazers. You can always send your ravens to the crap part of Soho. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. Venderpunkt, Rog.
War pig.
Who wants to sex Matumbo?
Explosion.
Courage.
Take that, Gloria. Take that, England.
Yeah. Is that your analysis?
To see a sucker.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu fighting America. Kung Fu fighting